All right. So I want to talk a little bit about this elephant image that I have here. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of a cool picture. Compositionally, it's pretty cool. Color, it's pretty cool. And value as well. So we're going to talk about that. So right off the bat, let's talk composition. What do you guys see going on here? And remember, I've got it kind of pulled to the side. Let me pull it back over a little bit so it's in the right spot. Go to that layer. Okay, so we can actually see it in all of its glory. Okay. So what do we got going on here composition-wise? You want to take a stab at it? Anybody feeling kind of stabby? Huh? So what about focal points? That's what we just talked about. What do you guys think? Anybody want to use a laser pointer? The butt. That's the focal point?
Well, it's kind of bright.
It is kind of bright. It is kind of bright. It's definitely our light source's highlight. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, even though we're getting a little ahead when talking about color and light, shading, temperature, and all that kind of stuff. But it's true. It does have a lot going on right there. Yeah, I wouldn't say you're wrong. Although I think this would definitely be like the point of interest, so to speak. But this is a strong element, and it's good that you saw that, I think. But you know, the fun part are the babies. They're so cute. You know, everybody loves these guys. And then you've got the mom right here. Now, do you guys see where, you know, your old friend here, right? It's kind of hard for me to draw it, but right? Oh, that looks bad. Let me just go ahead and make a new one. So if we have our rules of thirds, pop, and then probably about those are a little low. Kind of, sort of, maybe, kind of. Not precise, but I'm getting there. I'm gonna have to look up how to do a really simple, easy grid on here. I'm a little off on both of those. I think it'd be a little bit up there. Eyeballing it's always deceptive. Okay, so roughly this. So yeah, look how well boxed up that elephant is. Now we have more going on over here for sure with that mom's head, and then this zone here with our little guys. But you're right, this is definitely a alternate point of interest right there, right? There's not a whole lot going on back here, but all these elements are important. You know, they're important to the grand scheme of things. What do you guys think? Is anybody paying attention? Class! Okay, so we got all that going on. Let's talk temperature. Okay, so composition, you guys should start to be, I want you guys to start to feel comfortable with being able to see that pop right out at you. All right. Let's see. So we have that mass there. So we were seeing a minute ago, this area right here is very close when we're looking at it in grayscale. Nothing like this. This is a huge separation here and here, here, wherever these dark shadows are, and then on the tail. All right. So how are we getting the variation in this? If it's not a value variation, What's a really cool way you can get that variation? Color temperature. See? Now, that pops out a difference, doesn't it? Big difference. And what we've got going on here is color variation. So something that's kind of fun to do is to take samples in here of some of the different colors that are at play. So I'm going to do that right now. Ooh, pretty. So over here I've kind of made a little, yeah, kind of like a little basic example. So we have here, that's kind of in the this is what I love about the color sampler. That's kind of in the yellowy green right here, even though it doesn't look like it. And then this is kind of an orangey. You can kind of see that. They're all grays, but they have a color identity, even if faint. And obviously this stuff is a very cool blue. So you've got warms and you've got cools. That's something worth noting. So outside of brightness to darkness, you've got color temperature. So this is a color study, right? So I could actually make like a little draw a sphere, you know, like we had been before. I can actually make a little elephant study right here. And I will. And I'll show you guys how to do that. So you kind of come in, you can kind of come in here and make like a little, this is kind of sort of what it's like. Some of that's really rich, but ooh, yeah, I like that. So almost like if it was like a ball, like we've been painting this week. Bless you, sir. Look at that. Mixer brush is good for this, Alex. You with us, Alex?
Yes.
Now, I want you guys to look at like, whoop, that's kind of intense, but there's like these wrinkles in here that I'm going to kind of simulate. So we have some of the lights kind of bordering into the midtones in the middle, and then we've got some darks kind of hanging out too. Do you guys know what, do you guys know the difference between your highlights and your midtones and your shadows? Do ya? So most of this is midtone. Like all this, well, these are kind of getting in the highlight areas, but most of it is midtone. Most of that's kind of highlight. Obviously, shadows are going to be these big darks, which we kind of talked about earlier. But midtones, that's where the money's at, guys. That's where we actually see the most variation. Okay, so for example, we're going to get real academic here, as if we haven't been the whole time. So you have a black mass here. You have a white mass here. Okay, that's as simple as you can get if that's an eye, like an animal eye, right? That's pretty binary, you know, that's ones and zeros, computer talk, right? But like if you wanted to make it more painterly, rendered, artistic, you can have all these variations of gray in there. Which one looks more realistic? Which one looks more interesting? It's all those subtle variations. So actually, you know, we could talk a month on this. There's a lot more to it than this, but the scale here, that's 10 to 1. You know, it goes all the way from maximum value to minimum value. But it's called a gamut. Have you guys ever heard people say, run the gamut? Have you ever heard people say, run the gambit? Laugh at them on the inside a little bit. Don't be mean, but laugh at them on the inside when they say run the gambit, because that doesn't make sense. It's the gamut. G-A-M-U-T. Let me see if I can do a gradient in here. So that is your gamut. Now, a lot of paintings, check this out. You guys might like this for the non-attention payers right now. You guys might like this. Let's see. Control Shift A. Nice. So inside this strip here, we've got all of our value range. So this is just thinking in terms of everything in black and white. So you can take your color sampler over here and you can grab something and then you can kind of compare it over here to see where that would fit in the values. But your midtones are, whoa, whoops, gradient tools, powerful. Your midtones are in here. Most of the time you will have a compressed gamut. It might be from here to here, it might be from here to here. It's usually somewhere in the middle. Rarely will you have something that is really far up here and really far up here. Why? It's just sort of the way of things. I don't know. So if we take this guy, okay, and then let's completely remove all the color from it by sliding that all the way over. So I still have the same value of the gray. So do you see this bright orange? This is it. What do you think? Does this look lighter than this? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But it ain't. It sure ain't. Look. It has color over here on the elephant's hip, but that's the gray. And if I take this one, this is a little bit lighter. So up here in the grass is this. Wow, doesn't look like it, does it? It's a little bit lighter. No, you know what? I'm looking at it and it is darkening it. So that may not be exactly accurate. Or it might be. How do I take just the color out of that? I wonder. I don't know, it stayed going that one time. Okay, so emphasizing strong edges will help pop your composition. I can even increase this. Look, if I kind of lighten these light areas to an extreme, that looks cool. So if you ever have something that's looking like it's flat, it's muddied in there, this is something you can do. Not necessarily to this extreme, but you can increase contrast in some of these high contrast areas. What's neat about this photo is that you've got a ton of bright highlight that is a warm tone. So this whole image is a sort of a conflict between bright, warm, and cool shadow, which is one of the reasons why I picked it. It's really cool. And of course you can always do one of these little side studies. I highly recommend that. We can actually move on from maybe a different painting here in a second, or photo rather, that we can look at that at. But color temperature is neat. So just to reiterate, you can use the eyedropper tool, but I would prefer to just use the brush. Okay, and you'll use the brush to just take a color sample and paint a little swatch, a little blob. You know, just take a sample and say, okay, there's my color by itself, isolated, where I can compare it, you know, to another color. This is something that you can use to kind of cheat and train yourself as you study photos or other paintings and you know, work on your own kinds of compositions. this is kind of a point in your artistic lives where you need to really focus on studying images, art. You're going to train your mind to see better. It's not about training your hand to draw better. It's about training your eyes to see and then process and then draw. Because if you don't know what to look for, it'll be more challenging to actually make that happen. And of course, you've got a lost edge here, but we still have cool versus warm. See that? There's still something going on in there, right? And all colors, by the way, have a warm and a cool side. Did you know that? You may think blue, oh, blue's always cool. You know, blue's a cool color. Yes, blue is a cool color. But there's warm versions of blue versus cool versions of blue. So like as you get more into the lavendery blues, that's a warm blue right there. That's a cool blue. Okay, these are cool blues, like over in the kind of the electric blue, the light blue. But then as you kind of come back around again and you go into the green, that's kind of that's kind of cool actually. Warm greens tend to be kind of over in the near the oranges. So these are warm greens. Like this. That's a warm green. Browns are actually just reds and oranges. They're just not super saturated and they're kind of dark. So it kind of all goes back to our palette here in this triangle. It's sort of some stuff that we talked about in the very beginning when we were learning the concepts of how Krita manages colors. You've got saturation down here in the lower right corner, fully saturated. It's like pure color. Everything's Vincent van Gogh in that world, right? But as you move up, you blend it with black until you get to completely black for every hue. Doesn't matter where you are on the wheel. If you go straight to the top, it's getting blacker. That's brightness, right? So you've got hue, brightness, and saturation. And with brightness, it's a black to white ratio. So most colors, if you come around in here, where are these going to lit? Check out where these are popping up on my triangle. I'm just randomly popping around in here. They're not down in the lower right, are they? Do you see any down there? That's right, because the real world is mostly mid-tone grays. Occasionally, you get one intense area where it is, kind of over there. That orange is definitely the most intense saturation that we have in the whole composition. Does this type of stuff make sense to you guys? Or am I getting too theoretical? Am I getting too theoretical? No? Well, hopefully not. So when you start painting something, just be mindful of these things. So say I turn all this off, and I'm starting a painting. We're clean slate now, guys. Let's forget the past, okay? I'm going to start something out. I probably don't want to start out with these, bright areas. Let's say I'm, sketching a shark or something, just from my mind. Okay, so this is one way to do it. I could start with a really bright. Again, first and foremost, you're going to worry about your drawing, not color. You don't want to start out of the gate thinking about color as the most important thing, but it's important. It's not the most important. There's other stuff that if that stuff's not in place, it doesn't matter how colorful it is. It's going to have a deficiency maybe in design. Again, this is classical realism school. It all changes when you get into different styles of art. So with some art styles, color might have, or I guess I would say, it may not be quite as dependent on things like value and edges and drawing as it does on color. But in the world of classical realism, there's no way out of it. If it doesn't look like what it's supposed to represent, people can't recognize it for what it is, you've got a problem. Because you want people to be able to see it and be like, oh yeah, a shark, I got it. So this is one approach. It's not right or wrong, it's just a way. But I started with a really high saturation blue. All right, now there's that one. But let me go back some, and let's say, what if we started a little more conservative, okay, for color and getting form in color. And I can kind of show you, I'm not even going to worry so much about the actual animal because this is all so locked pixels, good. Okay, start with a mid-tone, and you know, don't dance too close to the edge of that. Challenge yourself, okay? So I've locked my pixels by clicking this button right here. You guys see that? This will only let you paint on top of where you already have pixels. So this mass here, it's letting me paint on, but I don't have to isolate it any further than that. So sometimes really bright highlights have a lot of color value in them. So it's not inappropriate at all to kind of put some high-end highlight there with a lot of color. And I might even be able to kind of add a little bit subtly down there. And I'm just doing really light passes because that's a really hard edge on that. So when you're doing forms, whether it's color or black and white, you always have a form shadow on your form if it's lit, okay? And I don't mean that kind of lit. This party's lit, man. All right, so highlight up here. Check it out, guys. This is an excellent opportunity for the color dodge. Remember I was talking about the color dodge? If you haven't checked it out, you should. If I go up here and I do color dodge, whoops, looks cool. And I can actually, if I put a little of that blue in there, then it'll look really neat, yeah. This is a good way to do caustics. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but caustics are color dodge. Caustics are those little like squiggly lights on something underwater. But I still have a major flaw in this as far as its form. What is that? Anyone want to take a guess? What am I missing here? Shadow. With all this beautiful light, it's only interacting with a mid-tone right now, so that's kind of muffling it a little bit. It's kind of muting it. So what I would do, and again, this is just, whoa, turn it off color dodge for one. But, you know, it's kind of, it's going to depend on what you're working on, but if you're making it up out of your mind, I would recommend to have a nice, even transition from light to dark on there. That was maybe a little too much. I think I kind of liked it without that. No. I need an opacity jitter on that though. Or not jitter, but anyway. So when you paint the sphere, you've got various zones that you want to be aware of, including but not limited to the core of the shadow, which is going to be this dark area here. We'll talk about that. So core of the shadow. Unlock those pixels. You've got the halftone, which is like right in the middle. Sometimes you would have reflected light. So to simulate reflected light, that would be something kind of like this down here. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, but this is stuff that you can look for in photos and other paintings, for example. So you have reflected light. That's little areas that's lighter than stuff more towards the bright side, right? Then you have sort of a light area, which is going to be kind of your local color, if you will, which is sort of this blue area here. And of course you have highlight, which is like the extreme bright, all right? And then if you go even further into it, you would actually have a cast shadow. So form shadows are on the object itself. Cast shadows are where the light is actually blocking something. And it's cast on another object in its path. Or rather, it's in the path of the light where the light would normally hang out. And there's rules for doing shadows. For example, the closer you are to the object making the shadow, the stronger the shadow. And as it kind of recedes, it gets fainter and more hazy, like that. There, that was the right brush. Like a pickle, but blue. So anything, you can kind of create a little study for it. Just do its basic shape, like a zucchini. But just about any physical form. Stand this on its end, it's a tree trunk. And that's something we'll talk about. Tree trunks are not brown. Get up real close to one. Not brown. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. I mean, there's browns in there, but it's not the overpowering. It's these types of colors up in here. You know, these funky green grays and yellow grays. That's typically what a tree trunk has going on. So I think something I'll have you guys do tomorrow will be some color study type stuff. So I bring that up, it's going to kill.